Simon Ekpa's case has been officially accepted by the International Court of Justice, ICJ, signaling a major international legal development that could influence his detention in Finland. Simon Ekpa's lawyer, Calgaris, submitted the case file to the ICJ, which triggered international attention and legal momentum, including responses from Finland's justice system. The Finnish government dropped all charges and dismissed the case against 4 Biafran citizens who were arrested alongside Simon Ekpa, citing a lack of evidence. This release of the 4 individuals occurred immediately after Simon Ekpa's ICJ case was accepted, raising suspicions about the strength and motivation behind the original charges. The President of Finland, Alexander Stubb, traveled to Tanzania, a close ally of Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré, sparking speculation that Simon Ekpa's case was discussed in diplomatic meetings. Finland pledged support to the International Criminal Court, ICC, a body under the ICJ, by seconding a legal expert, which is seen as a gesture to align with international legal standards amid Simon Ekpa's case. Bianca Odumu Ojuku was reportedly summoned by Captain Ibrahim Traoré but declined to attend in person, opting to send a delegate instead due to her political obligations in Nigeria. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu recently visited Anambra State and made promises to end marginalization in the southeast, but critics argue his words are hollow without real actions. This news update also highlights growing insecurity in Nigeria, revealing that terror groups in Borno State are now using advanced armed drones that evade detection, indicating high-level internal sabotage. Overall, the ICJ's acceptance of Simon Ekpa's case could delay his legal process in Finland, offer him international legal protection, and enforce accountability on both Finland and Nigeria through global legal oversight. The story that recently broke about the International Court of Justice accepting Simon Ekpa's case is arguably one of the most significant developments not just in his personal legal battle, but also in the broader conversation about the Biafra movement, international justice, and African sovereignty. This moment is much more than just a legal update. It is the unfolding of a major international confrontation with implications that stretch from the quiet halls of the International Court of Justice in The Hague to the restless towns of southeastern Nigeria. It also reaches as far as the remote corners of Borno State, where insecurity festers and drones now fly silently overhead, operated not by government forces, but by terror groups. And in the midst of all this, Simon Ekpa remains locked up in Finland, but no longer in silence or darkness. To understand why this news is shaking the table, we must first understand the significance of the International Court of Justice's acceptance of Simon Ekpa's case. The International Court of Justice, commonly referred to as the ICJ, is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It is not an ordinary court that just anyone can walk into and expect a hearing. It deals with issues of grave international importance. It is the court nations run to when diplomacy fails, and when justice must be declared not only for individuals, but for the conscience of the world. For Simon Ekpa to have his case accepted by this court speaks volumes. Simon Ekpa's lawyer, a man named Calgaris, submitted the case file to the International Court of Justice with the hope of getting international oversight on the legal proceedings taking place in Finland. Many saw this as a long shot, but then something happened that no one truly expected. The International Court of Justice accepted the case. Just like that, Simon Ekpa went from being a local detainee held in Kilmakoski Correctional Center in Finland to becoming the subject of a global legal and diplomatic conversation. Almost immediately after the International Court of Justice took up Simon Ekpa's case, the Finnish government made a surprising move. They dropped all charges and dismissed the case against the 4 Biafran citizens who were arrested alongside Simon Ekpa back in November 2024. These 4 individuals were initially accused of being terrorist financiers. But as soon as the case reached international eyes, Finland seemed to reconsider. Citing lack of evidence, all charges were thrown out. The timing of this decision is critical and has led many to question the integrity of the original accusations. Why were these 4 individuals held for months without solid evidence, only to be suddenly released the moment the case reached the International Court of Justice? For many Biafrans and observers around the world, this timing did not feel like a coincidence. Rather, it felt like a signal. A message that something bigger is in play. If Finland could drop the charges so suddenly, then what was the motivation for their detention in the first place? Was it really about the law, or was it about politics? Was it about silencing a voice that had become too loud, too radical and too influential? While all of this was happening in Finland, thousands of kilometers away, a different kind of movement was unfolding. The President of Finland, Alexander Stubb, took a diplomatic trip to Tanzania. Now, under normal circumstances, this would not be newsworthy. But these are not normal times. Tanzania is not just another African country. It is a close ally of the President of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, in turn, is known to be a strong supporter of anti-colonial efforts across Africa, and he has shown more than a passing interest in the Biafra movement. Many people believe that Ibrahim Traoré sees in Simon Ekpa not just a political agitator, but a symbol of African resistance. President Alexander Stubbs' visit to Tanzania raised many eyebrows. He announced that the visit was to celebrate 60 years of diplomatic relations between Finland and Tanzania. But the timing of the visit, happening so soon after the International Court of Justice accepted Simon Ekpa's case, led many to believe there was more going on behind closed doors. 3 days in Tanzania, accompanied by a business delegation, might sound ordinary on the surface. But to the trained eye, this trip could very well have involved quiet diplomacy, private discussions on Simon Ekpa's case, and how Finland might handle the growing international pressure. Meanwhile, Finland made another curious move. The Finnish government announced that it would second a legal expert to the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court is a judicial body under the International Court of Justice, and it deals with the gravest international crimes. On the surface, this move looked like Finland simply reinforcing its commitment to international law. But again, the timing was suspicious. This announcement came almost immediately after Simon Ekpa's case was accepted by the International Court of Justice, and it was hard for observers not to draw a connection. Was Finland trying to demonstrate compliance and goodwill to the international community as a way to mitigate the attention now being placed on its treatment of Simon Ekpa? If that was their intention, then they were too late. The world was already watching. The release of the 4 Biafran citizens, the diplomatic trip to Tanzania, and the move to support the International Criminal Court were all unfolding in rapid sequence. For Biafrans at home and abroad, it felt like a moment of vindication. For years, their cries had gone unheard. But now, with Simon Ekpa's case in the hands of the International Court of Justice, there was hope that the world might finally listen. But this unfolding story did not stop there. In another interesting twist, Captain Ibrahim Traoré reportedly summoned Bianca Odumu Ojuku. Bianca Odumegwu Ojuku is not just anyone. She is the widow of Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojuku, the man who led the original Biafra movement in the 1960s. She is also a respected political figure in Nigeria. When Captain Ibrahim Traoré summoned her, it was seen as a symbolic move, a way of acknowledging the deep roots of the Biafra struggle and connecting the past with the present. However, Bianca Odumegwu Ojuku declined to attend in person. She cited her political obligations in Nigeria and instead sent a delegate. Some saw this as a diplomatic move to avoid getting too entangled in what is fast becoming an international chess game. Others felt she missed an opportunity to speak directly to one of Africa's most vocal advocates for anti-colonial justice. Whatever the case, the symbolism of that invitation cannot be ignored. It shows that the Biafra issue is no longer just about Nigeria. It is being discussed in boardrooms and presidential villas across the continent. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made a visit to Anambra State, a key state in the southeast and a stronghold of Biafran identity. During his visit, he made a bold promise to end the marginalization of the southeast. That promise was met with mixed reactions. For some, it was a sign that the federal government was finally ready to listen. But for many others, it sounded like empty rhetoric. They asked, if President Bola Ahmed Tinubu really wanted to end marginalization, why wait until now? Why only speak and not act? Critics pointed out that the Southeast has long been neglected in terms of infrastructure, political appointments, and economic development. Simply saying that marginalization would end does not make it so. Actions must follow words, and for too long, those actions have been missing. People in the Southeast want schools, roads, hospitals, jobs, and justice, not just speeches. As all of this played out on the legal and political front, a different kind of threat emerged from Nigeria's northeast. News broke from Borno State that terror groups are now deploying advanced armed drones that are difficult to detect. This development has alarmed both citizens and security agencies. It suggests that these terror groups have access to technology that is not supposed to be in their hands. And this has led many to suspect that there may be internal sabotage within Nigeria's security apparatus. The use of armed drones by non-state actors is a serious escalation. It means that the battlefield is evolving, and the Nigerian military might not be fully prepared for the kind of warfare these groups are now capable of waging. But beyond the technical aspect, this development reveals a deeper issue. Nigeria is struggling to control its internal threats, and while it focuses its energy on detaining political figures like Simon Ekpa, more dangerous forces are gaining strength in the shadows. It is in this complex environment that the acceptance of Simon Ekpa's case by the International Court of Justice becomes so significant. It forces everyone, Finland, Nigeria, and even international observers, to reconsider their stance. It introduces a new layer of legal oversight that cannot be easily brushed aside. And it offers Simon Ekpa a chance, however slim, to argue his case on the global stage. Simon Ekpa's supporters see this as a breakthrough. For years, they have believed that the Nigerian and foreign systems were aligned against them, that the doors of justice were closed, and that no one would ever truly listen. But now, the highest court in the world is listening. And that changes everything. As this story continues to develop, we can expect more twists and turns. Diplomatic discussions will likely intensify. Finland will face pressure to justify its actions. Nigeria will be asked to respond to international inquiries, and the Biafra movement will find itself in the spotlight like never before. But amidst all this, one thing is certain. The acceptance of Simon Ekpa's case by the International Court of Justice is not just about one man's freedom. It is about the broader struggle for justice, dignity, and self-determination. It is a signal to the world that no matter how long it takes, truth has a way of breaking through. The next phase of this story will test many institutions. Will Finland allow due process and transparency to guide its actions? Will Nigeria recognize the need for reconciliation rather than repression? And will the international community live up to its promise of protecting human rights and upholding the rule of law? Only time will tell. But for now, this is a moment of hope. A moment when the cries of the unheard finally found an audience. A moment when Simon Ekpa, once detained and isolated, found his voice echoed in the halls of international justice. A moment when the story of Biafra was no longer just a Nigerian issue, but a global concern. And for many Biafrans, that is a victory worth celebrating. Shortly after the International Court of Justice's decision to take up Simon Ekpa's case was made public, a swell of public reaction began to emerge from various corners of the world. In Finland, opinion was divided. Some Finnish citizens, particularly in Helsinki and other urban centers, began to question why their government had chosen to engage in what now looked like a politically motivated detention of an individual whose legal grounds for arrest were growing thinner by the day. A number of lawyers, university professors, and civil rights organizations began issuing statements, some mild, others bolder, calling for Finland to re-examine its handling of the Simon Ekpa case from both a constitutional and human rights perspective. At the University of Helsinki, a special symposium was convened by a group of international law scholars. The subject was no longer limited to Simon Ekpa as an individual, but was now framed in the broader question: how far can Western nations go in cooperating with foreign governments, particularly those accused of repression, without compromising their own values of democracy and justice? One professor, a noted expert in EU legal policy, bluntly stated that Finland's initial handling of the Simon Ekpa matter risked placing it on the wrong side of history. This comment was widely quoted across Nordic media outlets. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, the reaction was far more chaotic and intense. The Nigerian federal government went into what appeared to be a quiet panic. Although no official statement was made immediately after the ICJ's acceptance of the case, behind closed doors in Aso Rock and the Ministry of Justice, emergency consultations began. Intelligence agencies raised red flags. There were fears that the growing international spotlight on the Biafra question might embolden other separatist groups in Nigeria and West Africa. Some government officials whispered fears of a domino effect, a possible chain reaction where other marginalized regions in the country could see this moment as the beginning of a new era of resistance backed by international legitimacy. In fact, whispers soon turned into reality. In the oil-rich Niger Delta region, a little-known group calling itself the Igbo Self-Determination Assembly issued a strongly worded communiqué. They congratulated Simon Ekpa and described the ICJ's decision as the turning of the tide against post-colonial oppression in West Africa. They went on to state that they would soon submit their own memorandum to international legal institutions regarding the decades of environmental destruction and economic marginalization suffered by the Niger Delta people. The Nigerian government quickly branded them as agitators, but the message was already out. The wall of silence was cracking. Further north, in the Middle Belt region, leaders of minority ethnic groups such as the Tiv, Idoma and Birom began holding quiet town hall meetings. Their concerns were slightly different. They were not calling for separation, but rather for more attention to local autonomy and the right to self-govern on matters of land, culture, and education. These leaders publicly denied any connection to Simon Ekpa, but they did acknowledge that international legal attention on minority rights gave them new moral leverage in the national debate. At the center of all this, Simon Ekpa remained in Kilmakoski prison. This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.